All right, guys, if you want to unlock the Alchemist beat formula, this video is for you. Now, this is not how to clone the Alchemist and try to predict where he's going next, because that will be infinitely difficult. The goal in this video is to teach you what he's taught us through his works. They're always inspiring and they sound super fire. So let's hop into FL Studio. It comes down to thinking like a sampler. Let's go to the channel rack here, right click, replace this with an FPC. This is FL Studio's version of an MPC. Go to the presets, let's go to empty. What we're going to do is approach this workflow as if we are sampling off the MPC. Let's drag our kicks. So what I would need to first do is get rid of the gap in the kick. So let's right click, edit in audio editor. We're going to get rid of any time issues on the kick. So I'm going to highlight this and just drag it into a pad. Okay, we can assign the pads later, but I think by default this is on C#. Okay, so now we need a snare. So let's grab a snare. So I like the snare. Let's open this up. Now I'm doing this for each sample because I'm showing you guys how to, like, the slower the process, the more accurate you're probably going to get for this sound. It's not a fast workflow unless you're actually on the MPC. Now we also have what's called the velocity trigger on, which is part of the sound. Most people who play their drums in FL, they don't record the velocity. It's just one solid, just high velocity all the way through. And that's why their drums don't really have that organic feel. Let's see if we can find a different snare here. I actually like this snare. All right, so we're going to go with organic snares. Notice we're not using trap drums here. That's another mistake beginner producers make. They'll just drag in trap drums, and that's why the sound doesn't feel right. Okay, let's go to the BPM here. Let's tap this out. Somewhere around 88, 90. 88's more safe. Let's start at 88 BPM, turn the metronome on. And now what we need to do is find a hi-hat of some sort. So what I learned from The Alchemist, I forget exactly which video it was, but he talked about how he programs his hi-hats usually first, or his rhythm first, and that becomes the metronome. So what we're going to do is do that exact technique. If I'm not putting words in his mouth, I'm pretty sure that's what he did in one of his beat making videos. So let's hit Control L and let's start with the hi-hat. So let's figure out what pad the hi-hat's on. For now, I'm not going to worry about reassigning these pads. So let's record the hi-hat for about 8 bars. Now here's something from Jay Dilla, for example. He might record kicks for 20 bars. Okay, so it's going to change the more you play the kick over time. So when you struggle with your beat sounding stiff and boring, try just recording for longer amounts of time. Let's go to song mode, and I'll show you guys a technique in FL. So certain notes are accent notes. If you guys listen, it was like ta, 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 ta. And that's what creates the sound. Now, on top of this, you guys can find the MPC quantize FL Studio piano roll scores. Basically, you can quantize to the MPC. You just have to find these online. It's on Mediafire somewhere. It's on Reddit, I think. So look up MPC quantize FL Studio scores. We're going to hit Alt Q, and hopefully I can find these from where I put these last time. I think it's in my... If I can't find them, then I'll just use the browser to find them. What is this? Okay, let's get out of here. So they are in my scores folder, MPC quantize. I don't know if we could drag and drop. Let's try this. Okay, I just broke FL. Hold on, you guys. All right, let's try this again. Hopefully it doesn't break FL, but we're going to drag this. Let's see if we could drag it inside of this window. I don't think we can. So we need to navigate to that folder. Okay, I tried to make it simple, but basically we need to open up this folder, see where it's at on our computer, under presets in FL Studio documents. Okay, so hit Alt Q, and we got to find that folder. So let's go to documents, image line, FL Studio presets, and what was it, scores. So you guys can copy this to a different folder. I don't know why it picks from a different folder each time. Anyhow, let's pick the 50% MPC. So this is a swing value. So now we can have a bounce from the MPC in FL Studio. So now this becomes our metronome. So that little tiny step is what can get you a lot further with the Alchemist style beats. Because again, he's on the MPC. We're in FL Studio. This is 2 different – workflows. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is play the piano through my Korg, and then we're gonna record the piano, but then also too we're going to sample the piano. So we're gonna basically create our own sample and then chop the sample that we just created. I'm gonna stick with just piano for now to not make this complicated. So let's just play random chords and just get a vibe. And let's go for like jazzier chords. So I'm just gonna play random stuff here. All right, now what we can do to simplify the sampling process is load that audio into a Slice X. So just double click, right click, open in Slice X. Click here where it says medium auto slicing. You can also right click to change the slicing style. I like it on medium auto slicing, but as you guys can see, it just chops it up into too many pieces. And so this is where we have to sometimes manually go in to correct this. Now, the reason we're using Slice is because it has a lot of features. So let's take the time here and just add markers. I'm going to just pause the video, but basically click on a point, you hit region, add marker, and just call it whatever. Okay, so these will become notes on our keyboard that we could trigger to trigger that specific part of the audio. So I'm going to pause the video to do this. Okay, so I've taken the time to make custom markers, which does take a lot of time here. And now I can play my keyboard to trigger. Now it's best to use snap to zero crossing, but sometimes I didn't use that to prevent just missing the chord entirely. But if you get clicks and pops, you guys can use that snap to zero crossing to prevent that. So we can go in and fix that as we go. Let's play this. Firstly, let's do our kick and snare from the FPC. So it's kick, snare, snare, kick, snare. Let's record this. Now we're going to record it for a long, 16 bars in this case. All right, now one thing I didn't realize is that the metronome was still on. So normally I would not record to that metronome. Okay, that would not be a thing. So here's what we have so far. Now remember, we need to apply the MPC effect. So let's hit Alt Q so that we can load up the template, which is in FL Studio Score. You guys can search online for the MPC quantization FL Studio Score files. Okay, and then we're gonna apply this to the actual. And now it has this this wavy motion that you can't get in FL Studio by default. Now let's go back and start playing some chops over this record using Slice. Okay, so now I'm just gonna play random keys here. All right, so on that take, it was a little sloppy in the beginning, so I might get rid of the beginning portion. But because we played everything to the time, it should work. Let's add that quantize. And we don't. Now you guys don't need to always play chords. You could always also play melodic motifs. So now we're gonna treat this as if it were a real sample. If it was, whatever the proper grammar is, y'all, it's late. Okay, so we're gonna treat this like a real sample. We could do filtering, we could add some effects. Let's just chop out the lows so we can add our bass. Let's add some Xenology effects. They have a really cool effect called, I think, like beat stutter or something. We could add that to it. So this is like an SP404. Let's go to the, I forget what it's called though. Forgot the name of it. Let's see what these filters sound like. All right, so we're gonna really make it feel like it's from a sample. Let's take off the EQ. Just use their filters. Yo, I forgot where the thing is. I think it's called DJFX Looper, if I'm not mistaken. Let's open that up. All right, so now I'm using the filter. Let's also see what they have with Lofa. Oh. So we're gonna compress this. That does have a nice tone to it. So these Xenology effects, again, are acting like the Roland SP404. So we're overly compressing the sample. Man, I'm really forgetting where the heck that thing is. I might need to pause the video to figure out where that stutter effect is. Maybe it's this one. Okay, so maybe it is this one. Now, to explain this, you can record this audio into Edison, but we're just gonna leave it on auto mode and automate the audio. Automate this effect. Right click, create an automation clip. So just randomly it will stutter. All right, now it's at a bass line. And we could do a sine wave bass. It doesn't need to be some super elaborate bass. Let's just use some of my favorite patches out of Trillion here. Make sure we're at the right tuning here. Where'd our sounds go? Oh, here we go. Now, electric basses is your safest bet. Let's try different. This one, pretty cool sound. So I'm just playing A and then E, which is the fifth. So we're gonna keep the bass pretty simple. The bass is really just there to fill in that kick. I might swap out the kick though. Kick's a little like crunchy. Let's see if we can find a different kick. And I'm not going to sit here all day to like go through kicks. So if I find it, I find it. If I don't, I don't. All right. This one sounds a little bit more. All right, so we need to edit this in the editor. Get rid of that little time gap. Drag it into the pad. So the reason I'm doing it this way is because we want both kicks, just in case I want to go back to the original one. So let's turn off the original one with the volume knob. Now that kick is a lot heavier. See if we can find a different snare. The snare is fine for me. I'm just seeing if we could find. I feel like the snare is fine. We don't need to do too much. So right now that kick and the bass are clashing, so we need to figure out a way to sidechain those. This gets a little convoluted, so if you're confused at this point, just don't worry about this. We'll give you the project files for free. Okay, so I need to send this to channel 4 in the mixer. From here, we can select each pad and give it an independent output, so we can go plus or negative. So let's go +1, which separates the kick from the other samples here. So now the kick is on its own mixer channel. And now we can sidechain by right-clicking, sidechain to this track. Go to Trillion. We need to load up. There's different ways to sidechain. We're just going to do the old-fashioned Fruity Limiter. Go to compressor mode, right-click, select your kick as the input, and just turn down your threshold. And turn up your ratio. So now the kick compresses the bass every time the kick hits. And let's lower the release time so it's not super obvious. That also creates dynamic in the track. Let's pull back some of these filters. So I'm going to do an auto wah low pass filter so it has a little more motion. Let's give this a little time delay. It's a little too early. So now we can go back and add more piano if we wanted and then resample that. What we can also do is change the tuning here to make it darker. So I like this tuning. So now we need to figure out how to tune our bass down to this. So we went down, 258 cents. Okay, so we need to go back to Trillion and just manually tune this down. So 258 cents is 2 semitones down, and then it's more down. So let's go shift down twice, and then we need to go to the tuning tab, and it's gonna be hard to tune this by ear. So let's pull it up a couple octaves. And then we need to manually pull this down in tuning. So that's close, 435 tuning. Okay, let's add a little compression to that snare. It's just too, I'm trying to think what, let's use the compressor here. We really need something to give it more bite, but I don't have my Volf compressor. Volf compressor would be a really good one. Or let's actually try the Xenology effects. They have pretty aggressive compressors in here. We need an aggressive compressor. I can't speak today. We need an aggressive compressed sound for this snare. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. Let's do the lo-fi compress. See how that snare is like it just drags out. So now it has like a tone to it. Start turning stuff down though. We can still give the piano samples a little more detail with some like delay. I'm just gonna use FL plugins here. Let's do Fruity Delay 3. Turn the wet level up, turn the time modulation up. Turn the delay time down, turn feedback down. This will add a wobble to the sound. I feel like we need to pitch down the hi-hat a little bit. This needs to be a little bit darker. So really this is only one layer of the song, which is the harmony layer. So we still need melodic stuff. So what I might do is go back to the keys. Let's let up on these. So it's also cutting out frequencies below, it's cutting out frequencies above 4K with the low pass filter. Pretty cool effect. So let's switch out the lo-fi effect. Some are more gritty than others. They're just reducing the sample rate, it seems like, or the bit rate. All right, so let's just brighten it up a little bit. I think the kick would sound good through that too. So let's. So most people don't compress, and that's why they're not getting that like 90s vibe. So this kick sounds really good compressed. So let's figure out how to let's just add more of a low pass filter. Let's add some phase distortion here too. Okay, and now we can add more melodic stuff over top. So we don't need to compress the kick that much, but I do like that sound. Just turn the kick down a little bit on the output. Just realize we're doubling the kick. That's why we get that sound. So that was parallel compression, which sounded pretty dope. I guess really we're just boosting it. Got to watch the levels here. So it sounded good. There's a little phasing, but to my ear, it sounds pretty unique. All right, so now we need to play some melodic stuff with the keys. I forgot the chords we played because now we're in a whole different key. So how's this gonna work? I've been thinking about this. Let's pull the tuning. Actually, no, we can't now. Let me see if I can tune my keyboard by ear. Close enough. So let's record some melodic stuff. That could have been a better take, but to save time, you know what we could do? Let's do something different here. Let's load this up in Serato sample, because Serato sample does the chops way better than slice. It's just better. Okay, so let's drag it in here. That will save so much time. All right, so it doesn't get every slice, but it's faster. We don't have time to be waiting and slicing. So now we can play the chop. All right, so now we're just playing it like we did before. All right, so some of the chops could change, but for the most part, they were good. Now we can make it darker by running RC20 and all this, but I don't think we need that right now. All right, so now we have, so even the out of key note will work. Now we can add reverb. We can do whatever we want to the sample at this point. I wouldn't add too much reverb. So the sample came out pretty dope. So now it's about making all this stuff feel cohesive. All right, let's start turning up some levels here. Realize the snare isn't separated, so I'm going to go to the snare itself. We can't turn it up from here. We can turn up the pad volume, but that's not going to give me what I want. So, okay. We can separate the snare. I'm not trying to complicate stuff, but basically we just want to turn the pads up, but then I need to go back and turn the kick down because the kick can't be too loud. So let's just find the sweet spot for the kick. Let's add these sounds to the beat mix here. Set up the sidechain here. All right, so now we just need more width. I don't think we need more sounds, we just need more sonic width. So let's open up this track here. Like the piano could have some kind of effect on it just so it feels like we took it from something. So let's add some kind of lo-fi effect on here. So the a phonograph effect. It's like a quick vibrato. Sounds pretty dope. Let's add some noise. Pretty dope. So we got dust, we have hiss. Let's turn the hiss off. I don't think we need scratches. Actually, let me see what scratch means. Yeah, we don't need scratches. So now it's feeling like it came from a record. I guess we do need the hiss. So the hiss is more of a white noise. I also want this to be somewhat wide. Let's add some chorus to it. We can make it mono to make it less distracting. Let's add a little reverb to it. So now it has like a reverb. Let's pull the mix back. And let's make this a plate reverb. So now it feels like a sample. So now we just got to get the sample to like be as wide as we need it to be, or mono. Let's try mono first before we make it wide. So making it wider will definitely make the track feel more full, but you're losing some of that that vibe. So let's just make it more mono. Let's run it through some saturation. Let's pull back some of that effect. Turn the hiss down. So again, most people tell you to stay away from compression. Compression is the sound here. If we take off, sounds cool, but it doesn't sound the same. Let's add a tiny bit of compression here. Point, there's not much more vibe we can add to it. On a bus level, I should say. Now we're just filling out the beat a little bit more. Let's take out some of the melody. We don't want it to repeat. Sometimes Gold Clip just randomly mutes. I don't know why. Let's mess with the tuning of the first sample. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Never mind. No, I didn't forget to do it. Let's just mess with the tuning though. Also in Serato sample, we can go to the detune mode to not change the keys, but move it by semitone. I keep saying semitones. Oh my goodness, y'all. We can move it by scent values under the detune feature here. Let's be weird and let's pitch this up like into a different key. So now that it's in this key, we could do cool stuff like add transporter. That's a great plugin, or even the EP34, and just automate this over time. I think I always forget the preset here. I want to say it's Dub Professor. See how this keeps rocking the sound? Let's try both octaves here. All right, so if we just let this rock, it will just keep going. So we need to automate this so it doesn't get overwhelming. All right, now let's automate stuff by taking stuff out. All right, so that's how you get those textured beats. If you guys want these project files for free, go to busyworksbeats.com/betterbeatmaker to download these project files for free. Peace out, guys.